Welcome to Diabetes Open Hours, your live Q&A opportunity with experts in diabetes management and care. My name is Kayla Runka, and I'll be your moderator for today. I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm calling in from Toronto and that I'm located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, and the Mississaugas of the Credit, and that Toronto is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. As a health-focused organization, Diabetes Canada recognizes that there is systemic racism within and throughout our institutions, and that we have the responsibility and the power to create culturally safe and appropriate environments of care. The topic today is surviving the holidays with diabetes. And while we have experts on the call today, this webinar is for educational purposes only. The content discussed in this webinar is not intended to be medical advice, and to the extent that medical advice is required, you should consult with a qualified medical professional. The information discussed in this webinar cannot replace consultations with a qualified healthcare professional to meet your individual medical needs. And lastly, the views and opinions expressed in this webinar are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Diabetes Canada. Having said all of that, today we have Gail MacNeill and Shelley Jones joining us. This dynamic nurse and certified diabetes education duo have graciously led our virtual diabetes classes for the last 3 years and bring with them a combined 70+ years of experience in diabetes management, education, and clinical practice, not to mention the many volunteer and leadership roles they've held for Diabetes Canada and other professional groups and associations over the years. Not only are they incredibly knowledgeable, but they're also a lot of fun. So we're very lucky to have them with us here today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. Please note this event is being recorded and will be shared on our website and YouTube channel for on-demand viewing. Any questions or comments that you submit via the chat function will be visible to other participants during the event, but we will not share any names or record of the chat in the recording. We ask that any comments or reactions you share be affirming and positive, and we encourage you to discuss your learnings with your regular healthcare provider prior to making any changes to your current routine. All right, with that, are you ready to get started, Gail and Shelley?
Yes, thank you, Anna. Thank you so very much.
Perfect. Okay, so while we're waiting for our first questions to come in, maybe we can just start with some of the unique concerns that people living with diabetes might experience around this time of year.
Well, the problem with, again, not problem, the situation with diabetes, again, where it's controlled by the food, the activity, and the medications, all of which may be impacted by the quote holiday season as such. One of the things we always talk about now, Shelley and I are not dietitians, okay? But we've been working with the food for many aspects. But if you really want to consult a dietitian about the holiday planning, that's a really great idea. But one of the biggest questions we always get is, what do we do about the food? There's always so much more food and people are expected. And that's the way in our culture, whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, food is a way of socialization, right? So the question is always, number one, for instance, what do I do at the buffet table? So Shelley, what do you say about that? People come in and say, I've been invited to this dinner and I know there's a buffet table. What am I going to do?
So you can pick some healthy choices. Start off with some vegetables and fruits, like load up on those appetizers that aren't going to affect your blood sugar. So there's always lots of choices when it comes to that. When you're picking your carbs, look for higher fiber carbs, things that aren't going to shoot your sugars up really fast. So the more fiber that's in your breads, for example, the less it's going to affect your blood sugar. And moderation. And if you're someone who's counting, so if you're going to have that sweet treat at the end, maybe eat a little bit less of the bread or the potato salad or whatever you're choosing off the buffet table. So sometimes it's a bit of a trade-off, right?
I also had one time we were talking about the plate sizes, at the buffets, and we said, how about choosing one of those smaller plates? And I always think, Shelley, of the plate method that we've used all the way through our diabetes education, where if you're familiar with it, the plate method is half of vegetables and a quarter protein and a quarter starch. Now, I'm not sure whose plate looks like that at Christmas time, but think of that when you're at the buffet table. The other thing people suggest too is only take what you need and walk away. Okay. Do not stay at the table because they said it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to register that the food is actually there. So you see all this food in front of you, you just want to go and take it all at this point in
Yeah.
time. So walk away from it, they're suggesting. Okay. And another thing, I love one of the physicians one time said, if it's looks good, don't eat it. And I thought that's a horrible thing to say because Christmas and the holiday season. We want to celebrate and we want you to enjoy it. So I'm going to suggest, and this may be a little stretch, but there's no naughty foods. But as you say, Shelley, everything
Everything in moderation.
exactly. And making the healthier choices, I think, is one of the ideas. So
I love that. Yeah. I always think too, the concept of nourish first. So
Yeah.
pick those things that provide you with that great nourishment for your body, your mind, your sort of healthy intake, and then look at those other options that might be more indulgent during this time of year for sure.
exactly. Exactly.
When it comes to planning, are there certain tactics that can be sort of thought of in advance in terms of managing your blood sugar? So, food affects blood sugar, but so does stress, so does hydration, so does physical activity. So when we're planning to go to a large family gathering or maybe a work event or something, what kind of tactics can be done in advance to kind of smooth that blood sugar response?
You want to think about the timing. So if you're going to a middle of the day event, then you might want to have an earlier breakfast or a lighter breakfast when you're in the morning to get you started for the day. So think about the timing. And if you have a later supper, again, you want to think about that timing. So you might want to have your lunch, maybe not at lunchtime, but have it a little later in the afternoon so that when you go to that late dinner, you're not as hungry and you're less likely to load that plate up.
Exactly. Now, the other thing I'm going to suggest too, God, and Shelley, is do not skip meals, okay? Because that's so difficult for the body with the insulin and the medications and things. So don't skip meals. But as Shelley was saying, maybe a bit lighter, in one meal versus the other, and the planning that's involved there. Now, if you're on insulin, for instance, the basal insulin is going to be there doing what it's doing, and then you will just take the actual mealtime insulin in timing with the meals. Yes, it's a little bit different along the way, but you can adjust. Medications like the glycerides or the glycosides of the world, again, be careful when you're taking those and thinking of plan ahead, look at the timing that's involved. And then we have a lot of medications too in diabetes now that don't contribute to the low blood sugars. So we don't really, we take them as prescribed, the usual timing. It's the only ones we really worried about are the insulins and the diamicrons and the secretagogues. Is that right, Shelley? Did I cover that?
Just to remember that. And when you're thinking about the timing, what I used to tell my patients all the time is we want to try and space those meals 4 to 6 hours apart. So wherever your day starts, if you have a late start to your day because you had a late evening the night before because you were out socializing and things, well, breakfast is wherever your day starts. And then just try to time your meals after that. So it doesn't matter when your day starts, that's breakfast. 4 to 6 hours later, you're going to have something else to eat. And 4 to 6 hours later, you're going to have something to eat again to try and keep that balance. So just kind of keep that in your mind. You've got a window to work with.
Exactly. And some people say, well, the meal is so late. Well, you could have, a carbohydrate if you wanted it earlier or have a small snack. And some people even say that helps. So though, that buffet table looks so good, but, they say have a small snack to tide you over till you get there. So you're not starving as such is another suggestion.
And I would suggest your snack, make sure there's some protein in that snack.
Yes.
So it's going to stick. So it's going to carry you through.
Great idea, I think.
Yep.
So
I like to say protein and plants. So you have some protein and something with a little bit of fiber in it. So whether that's, whole grain, fruits and vegetables, something along those lines with the protein always does a person well.
exactly.
So food, we've been talking about a little bit, and certainly is only one of the indulgences over the holidays. Oftentimes alcohol or sugar sweetened beverages, things like that are a big part of celebrations and traditions for people. So can we just review maybe the effect alcohol has on blood sugar and then how to consume it responsibly while living with diabetes?
Shelley has a great way of describing this one.
So in moderation, right? So try to follow guidelines, which can be challenging, but a glass of wine with your meal is not going to upset the apple cart. The thing to remember about alcohol, if you're someone who is on insulin or on those secretagogues, so the dimicrons, the glycosides, those pills that are kicking your pancreas to make more insulin, that puts you at risk for a low blood sugar. So alcohol is metabolized by our liver. And one of our liver's jobs is when our sugar drops is to put sugar in our bloodstream to keep us from going too low. But when alcohol's on board, your liver won't rescue you. So if you're having a glass of wine or something to drink, it's a good idea to have a snack with it, be eating something along with it. Just so you balance that so you can potentially avoid that low blood sugar if you're someone who's at risk for a low blood sugar. And then to remember the extra calories that we have in alcohol, that kind of counts. Those are extra calories. So think about that and what you're mixing it with. So Kayla mentioned those sugar sweetened beverages. So if you're mixing with juice or if you're using regular soft drinks, those things are going to kick your sugar up, the juice or the soft drink, but not the alcohol. I would also suggest if you're somebody on insulin and you're out, make sure you check your sugar before you go to bed that night. If you've had a couple of drinks, make sure your sugar's not too low, that you have a snack, because that alcohol is going to be working away in there, is going to tie that liver up. So if you're dropping a little overnight, you might not notice that. So you don't want to have that happen to you as well.
Exactly. And be careful, don't be afraid to ask people if they're serving a cocktail to you or whatever, ask what's in it. And if you get a chance, read any of the labels. And as Shelley was saying, you can do the diet lemonades just as easily as a regular lemonade. So watch those the sugary drinks that look so yummy. Okay. And again, just be aware, if you're concerned, take your blood sugars after and find out what's happening there. Okay.
And if you need a little bit of that fizz, there are lots of fizzy beverages, carbonated waters on the market now that have no calories, no sugar, no salt, much healthier choice.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Maybe while we're on the topic, for those new people who might be joining us, some signs and symptoms of low blood sugar, just to remind them heading into the season.
Well, again, if you're on the insulin or secretagogues and the blood sugars start to drop below 3.9, you might get a little shaky or a little sweaty, or your first signs, okay? And immediately treat with 15 grams of sugar, and that can be 4 of the dextrose tablets we get at the drugstore, and 3 packages of sugar. It can be 3/4 of a glass of juice or regular pop, or 6 lifesavers, okay? And that would bring you back up. And then be sure to retest in 15 minutes. And if the blood sugars have not come back up, then retake the glucose, okay, along the way. And again, if you are on insulin and the secretagogues, monitoring is something, yes, we are going to need to do, especially when the alcohol is involved along the way. But I want to state too, we sound like we're sort of, oh, don't do this and don't do that. I mean, we want you to enjoy the holiday season, and you enjoy them more with a little bit of planning and a little bit of forethought. Okay. Yeah. We're not saying don't do this. We're saying, a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought will make those holidays a lot more fun, a lot more and safer along the way.
I also suggest, Gail, because sometimes some people may not be able to test their blood sugars. They may not have the supplies they need, or they may have forgotten them at home, or for whatever reason. So I always told my patients, if you think you're having a low, if you're somebody who is at risk for a low and you think that might be happening, assume it is and treat it.
Absolutely.
Better to be a little too high than it is to drop too low.
Exactly. And again, as you said, Shelley, one, high in the sequence of events is not going to upset the apple cart entirely. People ask, oh, will one high blood sugar affect my A1C? And the answer is no. If they're high for a long period of time. And remember, the holidays are only sort of, a couple of weeks, or even if you narrow it down to a couple of days. And that won't upset the apple cart over the entire picture. Okay. Sure. Just keep that in mind.
Okay. We have a question just wanting some clarity around why 15 grams of sugar to treat a low.
That in the studies that they've found, that's what brings the blood sugars back up. Okay. If it's a severe low, we would treat it with 20 grams. And then they've actually changed the hypoglycemic guidelines in Diabetes Canada at this point in time, but 15 grams of sugar should bring your blood sugars back up into the 5 or the 6 range. But remember too, if your meal is more than an hour away and you brought your blood sugars back up, you're going to need a snack. And this is kind of where you say the snack with the protein in it, because we need to keep the blood sugars up there, especially if you're taking like a basal insulin. Remember, it's always in there working. So if you've treated the low blood sugars, but you're not going to eat for a little while, please take a snack that's got some sort of protein and carbohydrate, like, cheese and crackers or peanut butter crackers, something like that. Because as you were saying, the protein will keep the blood sugars higher for the longer period of time. So, but that's by research they found. Now, as I said, if you are losing consciousness and things, that again, we have other ways. We have nasal insulin that if people are been taking insulin secretagogues, they probably have that from their pharmacy. That's if you're severe. But as Shelley said, if you have any question that this is happening to you, just take some more sugar. A little bit of a high is a lot safer situation.
Correct. And for people who are on the pills, the secretagogues, so diamicron or glycoside or glyburide, or those pills that kick your pancreas to make more insulin, you take those at the beginning of the day. So if you skip meals or delay meals, that does put you at a little bit risk, because those pills are kicking your pancreas to produce more insulin, whether you eat or not. If you're not sure that you're on those pills, ask your pharmacist. Have that question with your take that up with your pharmacist. They'll let you know.
It's a great reminder. So let's spend a few minutes talking about stress. I know lots of people find the holidays stressful, but maybe some specific considerations for those living with diabetes and how stress might impact their blood sugar during this time of year.
Shelley, this is yours too.
So stress. So when we have stress, which can be many things, it can be not sleeping well. So people with sleep apnea, that's stress. Stress on your body, illness, and just the mental stress of the holidays. When we have stress, our brain kicks out hormones that go kick our liver to put sugar in your blood in case you have to run. That's a fight or flight response to stress. Happens to us all. But if you're living with diabetes, it'll make your sugars a lot more challenging to manage, because the liver starts dumping sugar out there, whether you need it or not. So you'll see those fluctuations. They will pass, but it's to try and manage that stress. Things you can do to manage that stress. So a little exercise, a little meditation, a little me time. If you can take it, however you can manage that, that's what you need to try to do, and just to know it's temporary.
And I think at this season, we put the pressure on ourselves, right? I think a lot of us put the pressure on ourselves that we have to get this done, this has to be done. And the point of it is, we're not going to be perfect. Please, your blood sugar is not going to be perfect. The food you're eating, it just is not going to be perfect. So take a little bit, as Shelley said, me time. Okay, take a me time every day just to settle yourself down, some mindfulness, whether you like yoga or something like that. Just take a little bit of time, because stress can be a really big problem. And I say, look, we need to look after ourselves. And they strongly suggest, of course, the sleeping, that we need the 7 to 9 hours at night, because if you don't sleep, even one night, they're suggesting lack of sleep increases our insulin resistance, which was the blood sugars up. So really trying to make sure you're planning ahead. I know it sounds like, a lot to do here, but just a little bit of planning ahead of time. If you know you're going out one night, try to get some really good sleep the day before, because we also, by the way, if we don't sleep, we tend to, at that time, back to that buffet, we tend to eat high fat foods, which are not great either. So again, the sleeping's important, and the me time. And remember, please, this isn't going to be perfect, but you want to enjoy it. Remember the joy that they say, Chris, that you want to enjoy yourself is what you want to do.
So a little walk, or shut the door to the bathroom and climb into the tub and have a little soak.
Exactly. Whatever me time it means to you, please set some out for yourself. Yeah.
And so, Gail, you mentioned that sleep or lack of can increase insulin resistance. And does stress have a similar effect on blood sugar? So raises the blood sugar?
Yes, as Shelley was saying, it definitely can raise the blood sugars, because it kicks your liver to start putting sugar out into the system. Now, some people in their stress factors, they tend not to, sometimes they skip meals and things like this. So some people find, again, personal reactions that they're actually, blood sugars may be a little bit lower, but it has a huge impact. Kylie, people often ask us in our Living Well series, does stress cause diabetes. And we say, no, 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 it doesn't cause diabetes. It's a genetic disorder with the environment involved, but stress definitely adds a what's the word? A trouble to managing the blood sugars, and it can put them up usually, as Shelley was saying, but sometimes they can go down too. So this is where we need to manage our stress is what we need to do. And as I say, my idea of managing the stress is planning ahead if possible, and then taking me time and taking, access. Where am I at right now? Am I running? Do they expect that of me, or is that my expectation I've put on myself? And so just step back for a minute and do some me time. So
Great. So just another question around how to handle maybe comments by well-meaning family and friends around the holidays for people living with diabetes, and some tactics to kindly put them back in their place, perhaps.
Kyla, this is one of my favorite areas because I have to suggest that I had a family for years that would put out when you marry into a family, they have different sort of foods and things like this. And I can confess, I don't think I liked many of the foods on that Christmas table. So the problem is that they say you have to try this. Of course, you've got two sides. You've got the diabetes police that are watching everything you put in your mouth, right? And then commenting all the time. And then you've got the opposite, which say you have to try this, you have to try this. And it is so difficult to be polite. So in the long run, again, just talking with people, and they understand if you have diabetes, but again, just saying, I don't think that I would like to have that at this point in time, or even sometimes taking a bite of it. That's going to solve the whole problem. Take a bite. You don't have to finish. If you put something on your plate, remember, you don't have to finish it. And that was my tactic. I would put it on the plate, take a bite, and I would sort of leave it as that's wasteful, I realized. But it sort of made everybody happy. We got the taste in and that kind of stuff. And then the people who were actually criticizing every time I ate something, I would try to explain to them, I can have everything in moderation. All the natural sugars, fruit's got natural sugar in it. So again, I need to eat sugar, and it's in moderation. And I planned ahead, and it's fitting into what I'm working with. That's what sort of, but it is, especially when you've got the mother-in-laws of the world and things like this. Shelley, any other ideas that you have?
No, it's just to try to be polite and let them know that you are the manager of your diabetes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And you know the things that you need to do. So
yes, they mean well. I mean, I think people really do mean well, and they want you to have try this, it's great. And so they only meaning well to you in the long run. You say, well, I don't think I'll try that, but then try something else that you look at this a little bit healthier in front of you as well. If you're at the table, try something else that you think you can handle, or would like and stuff. And also, if you're going anywhere and you're asked to bring anything or anything like that, think of the healthy recipes that are there, things that, as you were saying, the protein and the leaves, kind of anything. Think about taking a healthier dish, and then you can be sharing that. And when they're saying try this, you can say try that as well. Healthier options along the way. There's all sorts of tricks to the trade. But
A great idea for sure. So all of us have moments where we have overindulged, whether it's in food or, alcohol, anything along the way. As you said, it's about joy, it's about celebration. These things happen. Are there certain things to watch out for, and how can people who maybe had a bit too much kind of correct things post that indulgence?
well,
don't feel guilty, because as Kayla says, we all do it, whether we live with diabetes or not. Every once in a while, we forget where the line is and we suffer the consequences. And to remember that this is a blip in time.
Yes, exactly.
It's not going to last forever. So don't feel guilty. If you've been planning ahead, then the likelihood is that you're going to see the line before you get there. But if you don't, it's not going to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
And
tomorrow is another day. And just remember that tomorrow is another day, and you get back on track.
Yeah. And the holidays, while they're about food and drink and celebration, they're also about togetherness and and family and friends. And so sometimes those things become very important to people around this time of year.
Are you telling me, Shelley, that sometimes we may go off the rails and our planning isn't perfect? Is that what you're telling
I have
me?
yet to meet the perfect person. I'm pretty sure that does not exist.
Or
think
perfect control. Okay. Perfect control is not always there. And so things don't always go according to plan, but that is just fine. It's one day. And guess what? We're human. And that's actually saying, yes, we're human, because you're right, guys. Socialization is the most important part, is with people and getting along, and working. That's what the holidays are about, is enjoying people. We do it through food a lot, but we don't have to. We can do it through socialization. One of the other things I heard one time too is when you're together with families and things like this, plan a healthy outing with the family. For instance, like going for playing, if it's snowing, how about skating or something like that. And every Christmas in our family, my brother-in-law used to do this. And it was a great way to, you're not inside and you're not under that sort of umbrella that everyone's watching and saying, and you're active and you're having a lot of fun. So you can socialize other than food too.
build some new traditions.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to put a last call out for any questions before I ask one more question. So if you have any other questions for Gail and Shelley, please pop them into the chat. But there's this concept of taking a holiday from your diabetes that I read about. And I'm wondering if you've heard of that and what that might look like for people living with diabetes.
God, it's the same thing as taking a vacation from my diabetes. People would say, I'm just going to take a vacation and walk away. What I would tell people, they say, what are my blood sugars are going to go up? And I said, some people, I'd say, if it's going to bother you tremendously, don't monitor that day. Okay. Just don't monitor. If it's going to bother, now, if some people have to know what's happening, then do it. Wearing the continuous monitors now, of course, is an easy way. But keep in mind, it's not going to be perfect along the way. Okay. Can we take a break and not monitor? Potentially, if you feel safe in doing that. This is a very personal, diabetes is a very personal condition. And so some people can be comfortable, but I would say, when you're having that turkey and the stuffing and things, just don't monitor your blood sugars that day. For some people. Other people said, oh, I could never do it that way. Okay, then monitor, see what they're doing. But as in Shelley, as we've been saying, if it's high, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Um,
The only caveat is maybe if you're on insulin, you might want to be checking, because you do have that bit of a risk for low blood sugars. And people who take insulin often are adjusting their doses based on what they're going to eat, right? So if you're going to have that extra large carb meal and you're on a mealtime insulin, you're going to take a little extra of your mealtime insulin to account for that carb. So there are people out there who manage their diabetes that way. Let them do their thing. Let them manage it that way. Don't criticize them because they're doing that over the holidays.
Exactly.
What they're doing is not wrong. We are all perfectly imperfect.
Stay flexible. Stay flexible. We have another question around if there are any foods that people should completely avoid during the holidays. And I'm sure both of you have great answers for that.
I'm going to say there's no naughty foods. Okay. I'm going to say that. But knowing which foods are going to affect your blood sugars is important to the person. So we do know the carbohydrate is going to be high. And of course, those sweets, but remember, some of the sweets have got fat in them too. But again, there's no naughty foods. It's everything, as Shelley will say. I'll let Shelley answer this one.
Everything in moderation, but I will put a caveat in there, Gail, because I'm a person who believes that regular soda pop is bad for the world, and it doesn't matter if you have diabetes or not. Nobody should ever drink it.
How about juices and Shelley? Juices are as much sugar in them as
there is as much sugar in a juice, absolutely. But if you're going to make a tray, the juice at least has a little bit of vitamins and things in it that might be good for you, but there is nothing good for anybody in regular pop. So if you need fizz in your drink, there are lots of no sugar, no salt options that are just carbonated water, flavored carbonated waters.
And I'm gonna be on the other side saying I've had patients that just can't do without their Coke. Okay, they're regular.
I know.
Can't do it. So I say, as Shelley says, everything in moderation. You know what it's going to do, then plan around it. Okay, so you'll have that one, and then maybe not have the roll. Again, planning and looking at it, this and options, but it's very personal. but just know the sugars, know what foods are going to raise your blood sugars and work with them. And I'm not saying avoid them entirely, but Shelley will say avoid, but just work with them. That's the point. Yeah.
And to understand that the pops and the juices, the liquid is going to pop your sugar much faster than the slower acting carbs.
Yes.
So it's going to jump you up there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Moral of the day, everything in moderation.
That's exactly.
That's my mantra of life. All things
All
in
right.
moderation, including moderation.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I say enjoy the holidays. Okay.
Correct.
Please enjoy with people. And again, a little bit of planning makes it probably go a lot smoother, a lot safer, and you might be a lot happier about it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, before we have our last sort of closing comments and question, we're going to pop a brief evaluation into the chat. If you could kindly take a minute to provide us with some feedback so we can continue to learn and grow and hopefully better meet your needs. So before we wrap up, I'm just going to give you each an opportunity to give any parting words of wisdom around the holidays and managing your diabetes.
I think that's I've been saying all along is please enjoy yourselves, okay? Because again, we only live once, and a little bit of planning will help along the way. And if we do go off the rails, it's only one blip, as Shelley will describe it, and it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change the entire picture, okay? But one thing we didn't actually talk a lot about being active and stuff. So think about that, think about going for a walk or something along the way too, because that will, number one, relieve your stress. It helps the blood sugars. And it's a great way to just have your me time too. So that's my suggestion. Please enjoy planning and enjoy.
Yeah, and I echo all of what Gail said there. Moderation, enjoy your holiday with your family, with your friends, and good management. Enjoy the time. It's not a race, it's a one-lap race. So take your time.
That's
Thank
great.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both. So we've come to the end of our time and no more questions. So definitely want to thank everyone for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedule at this time of year to be with us. Sometimes it's difficult to make that time for ourselves, but as you heard Gail and Shelley say, right now more than ever is a great time to look at your personal care. It's so important and the benefits are always worth it. If you haven't filled in the evaluation, please consider doing so now. The link can be found in the chat. And with that, a huge thank you to Gail and Shelley, our wonderful experts today. I know I learned a lot. And even as someone without diabetes, I'm certainly going to take some of the words of wisdom into my holiday with my friends and family. Without the generosity of your time, Gail and Shelley, open hours would not be possible. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our last open hours for the year. And if you missed any of the earlier sessions, you can find them in the playlist area of our YouTube channel. To learn more and stay up to date on Diabetes Canada work and resources, you can visit our website at diabetes.ca or check our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and the platform formerly known as Twitter. You can also call our info team at 1-800-BANTING. That's 1-800-BANTING, or email us at info@diabetes.ca. Stay tuned on our social channels and on our website for future webinars and events. And with that, thank you and enjoy a wonderful holiday season.